Hey, what's up, guys? This is randomAWESOME. I am Tim. And for today's rant, I would like to discuss a topic that I know way too much about, unfortunately. And that is second chances. And when I say second chances, I am referring to chances for people who may have a questionable past, or whatever, and for whatever reason society has basically labeled them based on, their past or whatever, and just refuses to, accept them again, no matter what. So for me personally, that means criminal past. Yeah. So first off, I am not a bad guy. I hope you guys can tell that based on my videos and stuff. But I do have a past. I have done a lot of things that I am very ashamed of, and though I don't have a problem admitting to those things or discussing them, they are still a source of pretty intense shame. Now, I'm the type of person that doesn't believe in regret. And despite my past, I still do not believe in regret. I am ashamed of a lot of these things that I've done, but I do not regret them because they have contributed to the person that I am now, and I like the person that I am now. They've also contributed to my goals in life, and those goals involve things that are going to help society, So yes, I can't regret any of it. But, shame and regret are two very different things. So anyway, just to give you some, detail about my past. Now, this may be kind of a long story, so just bear with me here. Basically, when I was a kid, when I was really young, I was a really good kid. I was pretty well behaved. I did well in school and all that. I was kind of a nerdy kid, kind of considered a sissy by a lot of the other kids. I was picked on a lot and bullied a lot. Yeah, but again, I did really well in school. I was well behaved and all of that, So then by the time I got into junior high, that's kind of the point when popularity becomes like the most important thing for young people. And I wasn't popular, not at all. I wasn't like one of the kids that nobody liked. I was somewhere in the middle as far as popularity goes, but still, I wasn't by any means popular. So that bothered me, it bothers any kid that age. So in 8th grade, I decided I was sick. And I remember the exact moment when I decided I'd had enough. Somebody actually offered to, like one of the popular jocks, offered to pay me to do his homework. And I thought, at that moment, I was like, okay, I thought this only happened on TV or like in movies. I did not believe that, people actually offered to pay the nerdy kids to do their homework, like in real life. But that happened, and I turned him down, but it was that point where I was like, okay, I don't want to be seen as this, geeky, uncool, unpopular kid anymore. I'm sick of it. So I decided that I was going to try to become pretty much the opposite of what I was, which meant rebelling. And so that's what I did. In 8th grade, I started to rebel. A lot of the kids in my neighborhood and stuff, the kids I hung out with, they were kind of a bad influence, but I still don't blame any of them for the things that I did. You know, I mean, they were not the cause of my rebellion. Um, they were more just of like an example of how I should act if I wanted to rebel, you know. But they didn't make that choice for me. I made that choice. I decided to rebel, and it had nothing to do with the people I was hanging out with. It had to do with the fact that I was not happy being seen the way I was by my peers, I guess. So, anyway, yeah, I started, you know, like shoplifting a little bit and smoking every once in a while and stuff. I mean, just little things. It wasn't that big of a deal, you know. It's stuff that a lot of kids end up doing when they're young. But for me, they were big because, like I said, I had always been, you know, sort of this goody goody, and um, you know, things like stealing and stuff like that, skipping class and smoking cigarettes, you know, those things were all I had always seen as being like really bad, you know. So so yeah, that's where the rebellion started. Um, and needless to say, you know, I was young and naive and didn't know how reality worked, but the rebellion did not make me popular. It did not change the way people saw me or thought of me. Basically, it just showed everyone that I was desperately trying to be something I wasn't. Um, so yeah, it just didn't really work. So anyway, after 8th grade, I decided, okay, I'm sick of, you know, I had been getting in trouble a lot and everything, and I was sick of that. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna get back on the right track. I'm about to start high school, and I want to start it right. So I made that decision during the summer after 8th grade, before I started my freshman year of high school. Now I was really into music. I was in band and stuff like that, and I figured, okay, if I just hang out with the band kids, you know, I can't really go wrong. They'll be a good influence on me. They'll help me stay on track, because, you know, the band kids are, you know, usually considered the good kids. You know, they don't get in trouble a lot. They, you know, tend to do well in school. You know, I mean, there's even, you know, statistical proof that students involved in the arts do better academically in school, and get in less trouble. Not the case at my high school, unfortunately for me. The band kids were the partiers. They cared about, you know, most of them at least, cared about very little other than band. So band was the last class of the day, and a lot of times groups of us would just skip the entire day of school, and we'd go back just to go to band class. And yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to blame anybody for influencing me. It was, again, a choice that I made to start doing with, you know, all these other people. You know, like, I don't know. I mean, band was my life, and this, like, made a lot of friends, like, immediately, and we were all really tight-knit group of friends. And so, of course, I wanted to do the things that they were doing and stuff. And so that's what I did, you know. And that pretty much went on sort of off and on throughout all 4 years of high school. And it was mostly just like skipping class and stuff, drinking a little, but I never really got drunk until I was a little older. But I think like 17 or something is the first time I actually got drunk. But yeah, but I was, you know, continued smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. I wasn't like stealing or shoplifting or anything like that anymore. Pretty much it all just boiled down to skipping school, and smoking cigarettes. That was pretty much the extent of my rebellion in high school. But it was enough to pretty much put me on this wrong track, that would go on and on and on for years. Yeah, and eventually, I mean, with all the skipping school and stuff, and just not caring about anything other than, you know, music and art, I ended up, my grades suffered really, really bad. And I ended up dropping out of high school 2 months into my senior year. And I did so because There was no way I was going to be able to graduate on time. I wasn't willing to do summer school after senior year. Like, I had done it the year before, I think, and that was one thing, you know. But after senior year, after you get out of high school, you just want to be free. Like, you know, that's the point when this, you know, what, like 13, 14 years of schooling is finally done and you're free. I didn't want to have to spend all summer after senior year going into summer school, you know. It just wasn't going to happen. And I was really stressed out because of school. I was very depressed. I was fighting with my parents about it all the time. And so even my parents supported my decision to drop out of school and get my GED, because none of us could handle one more minute of it. So that's what I did. I dropped out. I immediately got my GED. I scored really high on the GED test. Now, in my hometown, there was a community college, and they offered a scholarship, a full ride 2-year scholarship if you scored a 65 or above on your GED. Now, I know the scoring and everything for the GEDs has changed. It's some completely different system now. But back then, there was a total of 80 points that you could get. And you had to get, I think, at least 40 to pass the test. And if you fail it, you can take it again or whatever. But if you pass it, you can't take it again. That's just it. You know, if you pass the test, that's your final score. You know, you got your GED. So I really wanted this scholarship, but yeah, I think I was a little overconfident with my, you know, abilities or whatever at the time, and I didn't study all that hard for the test. I mean, I had always been really good at taking tests. I mean, that's something I've never had a problem with. And the GED is a really basic test. You know, it's nothing very advanced. So I was confident in my intelligence level or whatever. Didn't study much. Math and science are not my strongest subjects, and I should have studied up a little more on the math and science before taking the test, but I didn't. Anyway, my final score was 64.3. I was 7/10 of a point away from a full scholarship, but it wasn't close enough. So, and I couldn't retake the test because I passed it. Passed it with flying colors. You know, it's kind of rare that anyone actually earns that scholarship, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, that was kind of upsetting. But whatever. Anyway, so then, okay, moving on into my young adult life. I had decided after I got out of high school that I was going to take a little bit of time to just be free and just do whatever, experience life, you know. And then I thought, you know, once I get this out of my system in a year or two, then I can like really knuckle down, you know, and get my life going. But again, I was extremely naive and had no idea how the real world worked. So I pretty much dug myself into a hole that I still haven't been able to climb out of. And I mean, the hole just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. You know, it turns out that all my, you know, screwing around and everything when I was like 18, 19, 20, that stuff left me with like extremely bad credit. You know, not really any criminal activity yet at that point, but it did, like, my work history was awful. Yeah, it was really hard to get anything going. And I was still young enough that I didn't qualify for financial aid to go to college because my parents made too much money. And if you're under 24, they base financial aid on your parents' income. It doesn't matter if you've been living on your own for 6 years or whatever. They still base it on how much money your parents make. My parents, you know, made a decent amount of money, I guess. You know, they were hardly rich by any means, but yeah, but they couldn't afford to put me through college out of their own pockets, really. So I was going to have to wait until after I turned 24 in order to get financial aid so I could go to school. Um, and in the meantime, I was just, you know, I'm living in a small town with like no jobs, terrible economy, and it was just really difficult. So I did end up moving around to different places, you know, in Oregon. I'm from Oregon, grew up on the Oregon coast, you know, but I moved to like Salem a couple different times. I moved Medford, I don't know, like several different places. And I did sort of work off and on, but I never held a job for very long. Um, Pretty much, you know, by my own choice. Uh, so anyway, yeah. So then mid 20s come around, and that's when the real trouble started. That's when um, I started having problems with like anxiety medicine. I had, well, I have pretty severe anxiety problems and panic disorder and stuff. So they, you know, doctors have put me on various benzodiazepines. In case you don't know, benzodiazepines are, you know, a class of drug uh, that helps with anxiety, panic, like, you know, panic attacks, basically. Um, they're not like antidepressants or whatever. They are a sort of as needed, you know, they're not like an everyday medication. It's if you're having a panic attack or if your anxiety is severe, take one of these pills and it'll make it all better. And it does, but it also gives you a high. You know, it's extremely euphoric, relaxed, um, sort of high, but it also made me extremely motivated. Like I was very physically relaxed when I took them, but I wanted to get as much accomplished. I wanted to be as productive as I possibly could. Sometimes that was a great thing. Other times it was not so much. I mean, it also made me motivated in a negative way. If I was tempted to do something, it was like my conscience was just no longer there. It's not like alcohol. Alcohol affects your judgment, yes, but with benzodiazepines, it's just your conscience is totally gone. It's like, you know, you're tempted by something, you just do it. It's weird, and I mean, it's hard to explain if you haven't taken them, but yeah, but needless to say, it led to some trouble. Um, it led to me stealing quite a bit. Uh, and I mean, it wasn't that bad, you know, at first. Um, it was just, you know, I mean, it was like I'd occasionally still steal a few of my dad's pills because he took Vicodin and also Klonopin, which happens to be my favorite of the benzodiazepines. So when my doctors took me off of it, I still wanted it occasionally, and so I would, you know, sneak into my dad's pills and take a bunch of those. Now, I wasn't addicted. I never got addicted in the sense that I was just taking it all the time, and if I didn't have it, I'd do anything I possibly could to get it. It wasn't like that. But I am addicted in the sense that if you put a bottle of those pills right in front of me, I am going to take some. Period. No question. And if there's a lot, I'm probably going to end up taking too much. Now, these benzodiazepines are not physically dangerous. The risk of overdose is really low. They don't really have a significant physical, you know, effect on your body. But it's the way they affect your mind that is so dangerous. And it's to the point now where, like, now I currently live in Portland, Oregon, and throughout the entire city, doctors here do not prescribe benzodiazepines unless they absolutely have to, because they can be so dangerous. And again, the danger isn't physical, it's mental. So Anyway, yeah, it's kind of a, you know, a serious thing. Um, but anyway, moving on. Couple of my more serious crimes uh, were, well, the first one was identity theft. I got I was basically in a situation where I had been going to an online school for about a year or so, and I had had to get private student loans for that, and I was living off of that student loan money, but eventually it ran out, and I was pretty much left homeless. I mean, I had called, there were two local homeless shelters in my town, and both of them were all full up. I wasn't going to be able to get into one of those. Um, it was like the middle of November or something, and I lived on the coast. So the weather was way too bad to be living on the streets. Um, I had no friends I could turn to for a place to stay. My family wasn't going to help me with a place to stay. So I I freaked out, kind of, you know. I didn't I was really, really worried about what was going to happen, and I was desperate to find a solution. Well, the solution I ended up deciding on was to use my parents' credit card information to get the cheapest motel room I could possibly find. And so that's what I did, and that went on for about 3.5 weeks to a month before my parents caught on to what was happening, and they couldn't afford to pay off the charges. It was a couple $1,000s. I mean, it was, you know, not a ridiculous amount of money. Like I said, I found the cheapest motel I could possibly find, but they couldn't afford to pay it off at the time, so their only other option was to press charges. If you press charges, then the bank covers it. You know, they wouldn't have been responsible for the money that I took. So that's what they did. They pressed charges, and I got, you know, convicted of identity theft, and I got put on probation for 1.5 years, spent a few days in jail. Now, during the time that I was on probation, I had started shoplifting a lot, which is something I hadn't done since I was like 12. Uh, but yeah, I had a couple friends that shoplifted a lot, and I think just one day I decided to steal a t-shirt that I really liked and couldn't afford. And when I realized just how easy it was, I just started doing it all the time. And I never liked it. I never did it for the thrill or anything like that. I always pretty much hated doing it. And I only stole things that I needed. I never just stole random, you know, stuff. It wasn't a selfish, greedy thing. It was just sort of, I saw it as a necessity, basically. You know, I had no way to get basic items that I needed, and so that's just, you know, what I did. But I had a personal rule that I only stole from like the major stores and stuff, never from small businesses. I very much support small businesses, and I do not condone ever shoplifting from one. But the bigger ones, I didn't really feel any guilt about that. Still don't feel any remorse for it. Now, I have not shoplifted a single thing or even been tempted to for about 5 years now. But yeah, I definitely went through this phase for a year or two where I was shoplifting a lot. And being on probation, I did get caught shoplifting, I think once or twice, of the 8 million times that I did it. And so being on probation, I got put in jail for like 9 days, 10 days, whatever, when I got caught doing that. Anyway, eventually I again ran into a situation where I had nowhere to go, nowhere to live. I was getting evicted from my apartment and stuff. This time, my parents chose to help me out, and they let me stay at their house for a couple months. And again, my dad takes pills that I really like, and I always managed to get my hands on them. He did. I mean, I was the one that encouraged him to put them somewhere I could not get to them. I begged him, put them somewhere where there is no way I can have access to them. So he put them in a little safe in his room, and honestly, it was not hard for me at all to find a key to that safe. And that's what happened. So after about 2 or 3 weeks of, what I refer to as a bender, I was just taking tons and tons of pills. After a couple weeks of that, my conscience was just completely, not even a shred of it left. And I was starting to kind of freak out again, because my parents technically lived outside of the county that I was on probation in. And legally I wasn't allowed to live outside of that county. So even though my parents were just a couple miles outside of the county, my probation officer eventually, after a couple months, decided that he would prefer it if I was back in that county. And my parents had also decided that they wanted me out too. Not because, I had done anything that they were aware of, or that we weren't getting along. It was just, I had been there for 2 months, and they just, they wanted me to move on, I guess. So I was basically being forced to leave the place I was living yet again, and had nowhere else to go. So I started getting scared and paranoid. Being high on the pills, since I had been taking them for a few weeks, I decided that the solution to that problem was to break into my parents' neighbor's house when he was out of town, steal a bunch of his stuff, and then sell it. Well, actually, my original plan was just to break into his house and try and find maybe some money that he had in there. Wasn't able to find any money, but he had quite a few things that were, fairly valuable. So I decided to just take those things and sell them. Now, I didn't get caught doing that until like a week later. My dad actually found some of the stuff that I had taken, and my parents again called the police. And at that time it was just because they were mad. They were pretty pissed, and as well they should have been. I was not upset that they were angry. They had every right to be. I was angry at myself, but whatever. So anyway, I ended up being charged with burglary, and that is a felony that I can never get expunged from my record. It is always going to be on my record. I only got 30 days in jail and some additional probation, but the consequences were severe given the fact that I can't ever get that expunged, and it makes me look terrible. It makes me look like so much worse of a person than I actually truly am. You see, a potential employer sees the word burglary on my criminal record alongside the identity theft and several shoplifting charges and stuff. Yeah, they're not going to want to hire me. Nobody is. It doesn't matter if it's a job where I'm working with money or products or whatever. It could just be a labor position, but my criminal background suggests that I'm not an honest person, that I'm a thief, that I'm, just not trustworthy. I know that isn't the case, certainly not anymore. But on paper, that's what people see. They see a criminal who is dishonest, which basically renders me unemployable in the eyes of potential employers. Now, yes, so a lot of them do give people second chances. People who have had or who had drug charges on their record, let's say, because a lot of addicts quit. They go into recovery. They, go into rehab, whatever. They get better. So potential employers are willing to sort of overlook that. They're willing to say, okay, in the past you may have had a problem with drugs, but you don't anymore. So yeah, whatever. Violent criminals. I know a lot of people who went to prison for murder, and when they got out, had no trouble finding work. I don't know. I guess people are willing to overlook that because they're like, well, they did 10 years in prison. They did their time. You know, maybe it was a crime of passion. Maybe it was, you know, sort of an accident. You know, maybe they just had anger problems and they got over that. You know, whatever. But they're willing to overlook that. But when they see thefts on your record, that basically just tells them you're dishonest. Plain and simple. You know, and usually dishonest people don't change. You know, usually if you're a dishonest person, you're probably always going to be a dishonest person. Not the case with everybody, though. Definitely not the case with me. I did completely turn my life around about 5 years ago. I was just sick of all the negativity. I was sick of getting in trouble. I was sick of going to jail. I was sick of, you know, everyone around me getting pissed off at me all the time because I was doing stupid shit. So I just decided, okay, no more. I don't want any of that in my life anymore. So the only way to get all of that negativity out of my life is to stop inviting it into my life. So that's what I did, and my way of thinking completely changed. Haven't even had the slightest temptation to steal, even when times get desperate for me and I'm broke and I really need money for something and I'm freaking out about it. Even then, I still am not even slightly tempted to do anything illegal, immoral, questionable in any way. I just don't think that way anymore. I don't see those things as solutions to my problems like I used to. But still, that doesn't change my criminal background. It doesn't change what I've done in the past. So potential employers, again, they don't see that I've completely changed who I am. They don't see that my way of thinking is not what it was back when I committed those crimes. They don't see any of that. All they see is that I stole a bunch of stuff when I was younger. You know, maybe not in the last 5 years, but, you know, they see that I did it in the past. They just automatically assume they can't trust me. You know, part of me can't really blame them for that, but there's also that part of me that is like, okay, this is ridiculous. I did my time. I suffered the consequences for my mistakes. You know, I'm going to be suffering the consequences of them probably for the rest of my life. But I want to be a productive member of society. You know, I want to get a job and really start my life, make up for my past mistakes, at least to an extent, as much as I possibly can. But society simply won't allow it, won't let me back in. You know, it's basically they've branded me and shut me out. You know, I have been trying for several years now to find work. I can't find anything, not even fast food. Nothing at all. Because everybody just, you know, they see my record, they say, nope, not going to happen. Now, it's not fair at all, even slightly. I realize that when people commit crimes, when they do bad things, there are consequences. There is discipline involved. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I deserved the consequences. I deserved the discipline. I deserved the jail time, the fines, the probation, all of that. I deserved it. But I went through all of it. Again, I did my time. I did my probation. I paid my fines. I did my jail time. I should be done now. I completely changed who I am several years ago and have, done nothing to even suggest that I'm that same guy or that I'm dishonest or untrustworthy, whatever. I've done nothing over the last 5 years to suggest that. But I'm still branded a thief. criminal. You know, nobody wants to hire me. Nobody wants to give me a job. I'm a very intelligent person. You know, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not full of myself or anything like that. But you know that it's true. Um, it's just simply stating a fact. You know, I've always been an intelligent guy, so you know there's that. I'm skilled. I've done a lot of different types of work and gained a lot of different skills. Um, so there's that. I'm educated. You know, I've gone to college off and on. I haven't actually earned any degrees or anything, but you know, I've studied various different fields, and I would be an excellent employee to somebody if they would just give me a chance, but they won't. Now, you know, I understand the purpose of background checks and stuff. You know, you want employees you can trust, and background checks are just a way to help you decide whether or not you can trust somebody, but they aren't always 100% accurate. You know, they're not going to give you an accurate idea of what kind of person somebody is or what kind of employee they will be. All they tell you is what that person has done in the past, and so then you just sort of assume what kind of employee they'll be. But it's not, and sometimes you're correct about it, but it's not always right. For example, I have two different friends, both of them female, uh, who have literally stolen from every single employer they have ever had. So that's like 15 to 20 years worth of employment, and they both of them only, I think, sometimes they'll work at a place for a couple years and then they end up moving on. So, you know, both of them have worked these sort of short-term jobs, so they've had a lot of different employers over the years and have stolen from every single one. Now, but these two people, they don't even know each other. I think they met like one time, but just sort of coincidentally, I happen to have two different female friends who have done this. They've stolen from every employer they've ever had, but they've never been caught because they steal little bits at a time. You know, pull $5 here and there out of the cash register. They may do it every day, but it's just little bits of it at a time, and it totally goes unnoticed. And they've never been caught. Neither of them have ever been in trouble for breaking any other laws. You know, so they have no criminal record at all. Now, both of them have had problems with meth, but again, they haven't been in trouble for that. So they don't even have drug charges on their records. I think one of them still does meth. The other one quit a few years ago. And, you know, so that's not an issue for her anymore. But, you know, me, I was never into the hard drugs like that. I'm very much opposed to meth, always have been, never touched the stuff, never had any sort of desire to try it. I've been around it a lot. I've had friends that, you know, have had problems with it, like I just said. But I always did my best to try and get them away from it. You know, they knew quite well how much I was opposed to it. But anyway, moving on from that, yeah, they have no problem finding work. You know, if they get fired from a job or they quit a job, they'll have another one within a couple days. They have no problem at all. Part of it's probably because they're female and they can, you know, sort of flirt their way through an interview and stuff, and they definitely, at least one of them definitely gets jobs that way. But yeah, it's also because, you know, they have no criminal background or no, you know, on paper they seem to be good, you know, good employees, employable, definitely. But in reality, again, they've stolen from every employer they've ever had over the years. So, yeah, reality and what comes up on a background check are not always one and the same. I may look like a thief on paper, and I was a thief. I don't deny that, clearly. But I have never stolen from any employer ever, not a dime. So, yeah, and I never would. I mean, that was just not something that I would ever even consider to be a possibility. Even back in my days as a thief, I still would not have done that, ever. Because that's, you know, yeah, I was a thief, but I still had a certain, like, code. I had morals. I would steal from, like I said, like major corporation type stores and stuff like Walmart or whatever, um, but not from small businesses, not from friends, not from an employer for sure. But yeah, whatever. So you can see how, just because I look bad on a background check does not mean I'm going to be a bad employee. I definitely would be an excellent employee for anybody willing to give me a chance. But instead, I am stuck not being able to find work, pretty much ever. Don't qualify for any sort of Social Security because I haven't worked enough over the past like 7 or 8 years or whatever to qualify for that. I do suffer from depression and anxiety, and those are things that could qualify me for uh, disability benefits, um, given the fact that my depression is pretty much crippling. It's turned me into a hermit. I don't know. It's like part of me is just afraid to go out into the world because whenever I do, you know, there's a possibility of bad things happening to me. I mean, and I'm not talking about like physical harm or anything like that. I'm just talking like, I've been hurt by other people enough and had enough negativity and disappointment in my life that now I just kind of feel like, well, if I just stay at home, then I'm safe from all that. So yeah, but I'm not like agoraphobic or anything. I still do go out every once in a while into the world or whatever, and it's not that big of a thing, but it does. My depression definitely is pretty crippling. I'm really not able to work right now. I mean, whatever. I could. I mean, I've been taking antidepressants for a couple months now, and they've definitely helped significantly. So yeah, if someone were to offer me a job right now, I would definitely take it. Um, but over the last couple years, before I started being treated for my depression, there was no way I could have worked at all. There was just, my depression was way too severe for that. I mean, yeah, I could hardly go out and run errands and stuff. There's no way I could have handled the responsibility of a job where I had to go and be around other people every day. That just wasn't going to happen. And luckily, my family understands that, and they've been helping me out over the last few years. And they get how hard it is for me. Nobody wants to hire me, plain and simple. And that shouldn't be the case. I deserve a second chance. And again, I'm not trying to act like I'm full of myself or anything. All I'm saying is that I did the time, I suffered the consequences for my actions, I learned from my actions, I completely turned myself around, I am not that person anymore, and I do deserve a chance to be a productive member of society. That's all I want. I don't want anything special. I don't want, whatever. I'm not saying I'm more deserving than anybody else. All I'm saying is that I deserve a chance to get back on the track that I got off of so long ago. Like I said, it's not easy to change who you are. It's not easy to bounce back from the serious mistakes that I've made in my past. But I did it. And now I'm ready to move on, move beyond that point of my life. That was a very dark point of my life. It's over now, and I just want to move on. But society is not allowing me to. They're telling me, you're not employable, you don't deserve a job, whatever. So I'm stuck living off of other people, my family, the government, whatever. I mean, that's how I get by, and I am barely scraping by. I mean, I've got decent things and stuff in my apartment, but they were pretty much all free or extremely cheap. I'm very good at living on an extremely low budget. That's the talent that I have. They discovered years ago. So yeah, people walk into my apartment, they think, wow, this is a really nice place. That's usually what they tell me. There's, like I said, there's nice things. I'm a clean person. I keep it clean. I'm a decorator, so I know what looks nice. But again, I'm extremely good at living on pretty much nothing. So yeah, nothing in my apartment was by any stretch of the imagination expensive. And most of it may look good, but it's, sort of cheap quality or whatever. But anyway, yeah, the whole point of this is that I am not my past. I am my present. I am who I am today. A background check is not going to reflect who I am today. That reflects who I was several years ago. And again, I deserve a second chance. Period, plain and simple. Any criminal or felon or person with any sort of a shady or questionable past in any way that has changed, that hasn't done anything in 5 years or more, who has shown that they've worked hard to change and to better themselves, they deserve a second chance. They deserve a chance to make a living, to not live off of other people, and just be productive. I hear all the time, I see it on social media and everything, people freaking out about all these moochers who are so entitled and, they're just lazy and they just need to go out and get a job and, whatever. It's not that simple for most of them. They all have a different story and it's different circumstances that have led them to their unemployment or their poverty or whatever. And yeah, occasionally it's because they're just lazy. They don't want to work. They want to be mooches, whatever. But that's a very small percentage of those people. The vast majority of people who are unemployed or living in poverty have done everything they possibly can to get out of that situation and just have not been able. They haven't had the opportunities that other people have had or whatever. They've been tied down to that life by something, there's various reasons for it, but yeah, in my case, it's my past mistakes. I'm not lazy. I want to work. I want to be productive. I've wanted that for a very long time. I'm not a bad guy. I'm intelligent, I'm skilled, I'm honest and trustworthy, my past mistakes, whatever. Again, that is who I used to be. That is not who I am now. So, yeah. Just because my criminal background has a couple felonies on it doesn't mean that I will be a bad employee or that I am not trustworthy. It means that I wasn't trustworthy. But I am now. So, see, that's the thing. And I could prove that if somebody would give me a chance to. But, it's a really unfair system because all these people who deserve a second chance and who would use that chance to build a better life for themselves, those people aren't given that chance because on paper, they look bad. So the reality of who they are doesn't make any sort of difference. And that's why this system doesn't work. Again, I understand the point of background checks, but the way I see it, you take a risk whenever you hire someone. It doesn't matter if they have a clean background, a not so clean background, whatever. Every time you hire somebody as an employer, you're taking a chance on that person. There is always a possibility that they won't be a good employee, or that they'll be dishonest or unreliable or whatever. So, yeah. Granted, people with a criminal past are more likely to be untrustworthy. I get that. But it's not a guarantee. So people really seriously need to start giving second chances again. I mean, they used to, but they don't anymore. They think, okay, once a criminal, always a criminal, and that's simply not true. But, that's just the unfortunate flaw in society that is the reality for us today, especially for people like me. Yeah. So basically, yeah, I'm just sort of begging you all, if you're an employer, if you even just know somebody who has a past that they can't seem to break away from, just try and understand that, people do change. A person's past does not paint a picture of who they are now. So yeah, give people chances, and I think you'd be surprised. Second chances are a very, very good thing. And, I mean, I'm just so sick of society telling me, no, you cannot be a productive member of society anymore. You fucked it up in the past, and now we're gonna hold you down forever and not let you get back up. And I mean, it's extremely frustrating. I've been struggling to get back up for a very long time, and I'm constantly judged by this society that isn't giving me the chance. They're telling me, you're a mooch, you're living off of other people, you're whatever, you just need to get a job and blah blah blah. That's how people judge me. When people who know me are like, yeah, or not people who know me, but people who meet me, I should say. A lot of them are like, yeah, you're jobless, your parents are paying your rent and your bills, you're just a loser. But that same society is denying me the opportunity to change all of that. They're saying, you're a loser because you don't have a job, but we're not going to let you get a job. We're not going to give you that opportunity. Instead, we're just going to, hold you down and keep you there and judge you like it's your fault that you don't have a job. It's your fault that you have to live off of other people. No. It's my fault that I went to jail years ago. It's my fault that I had to pay those fines and do probation and stuff. That's my fault. I committed those crimes. The consequences were my responsibility, whatever. They were deserved. But it is not my fault that I am not currently a productive member of society. That is society's fault. That is society telling me, no, you can't be a productive member of society. We will not welcome you back in. But we will judge you for not being a productive member of society. Yeah, there's no logic to that. It's definitely not fair, and it desperately needs to change. I'm not the only one going through this. There are definitely thousands, probably millions of other people living under similar circumstances. People that just cannot escape the past, that, paints a picture of them that is completely inaccurate. Let's say a person weighs 400 pounds and, there's, they are known as like this huge person, and then they let's say they lose all the weight. They are down to 170 pounds now. But it's like nobody sees that person who they are now. They only see what they used to be. They see the fat guy. You know, it's like there's pictures of this fat guy everywhere. And even though the guy's not fat anymore, there's no pictures of him anywhere that show what he currently looks like. So all anybody's seeing is the fat guy. Does that make sense? Maybe? I don't know. I mean, it was kind of just sort of, yeah. Couldn't think of another example, really. Yeah. So, whatever. Look at it this way. Okay, this might make a little more sense. Mona Lisa. Everybody is familiar with the Mona Lisa. So, somebody says Mona Lisa, the image pops into your head of that painting. Now, let's say after that painting was painted, Mona Lisa bleached her hair blonde and, you know, got a mohawk or something. Yeah, whatever. Let's say her appearance drastically changed. The fact that it's nothing like this painting doesn't make a difference. You know, that may be the reality of what she looks like or who she is now, but nobody knows that because they don't want to. I mean, they don't know her. They're not seeing it. They're not looking right at it. So, say, you know, again, somebody says Mona Lisa, you immediately think of the image in the painting. Yeah. And it's the same, you know, it's the same for me and potential employers. They see the background check, but they're not seeing how I've changed over the years. They're not seeing that I am actually trustworthy, that I am not a criminal, that I am extremely ashamed of the mistakes I've made in the past, that I'm desperate to get back on my feet and, you know, get out from under my parents and the government. They can't see those things. What they can see is my background check. They can see the word burglary and thief, and that's what they see. So to them, that's what I am. And again, that's not the reality of who I am. So anyway, I have been going on and on for an hour about this. So anyway, second chances. That's what this is all about. Give people second chances because, you know, most of those people deserve the second chances and will probably surprise you with what they do with that second chance. So yeah, don't jump to conclusions about people just because they have done things in the past that aren't necessarily good. Whatever. Yeah. Again, I am Tim. This is Random Awesome Rants. Peace out.